What's going on, Minecraft and YouTube? My name is Preacher. We're back for another tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at building up a forest. Now, just like most builds that you do in Minecraft, you want to start by, maybe in a creative world, with some sort of build palette. And so I lined out a few little things that I wanted to include in this little build. There's many things that I used that I did not include in my little build palette over here, but and there's many things that I could have used that I didn't use. So, like say for instance, sweet berries and different stuff like that. But let's jump into this little build palette and just to see. All right, so we have all of our trees, our basic trees, saplings, and we of course put string over the top to keep those there from sprouting. Of course, the dark oak, you do not need the string. So also we have the new azalea bush. Then we jump up to two high bushes. I'm not going to cover these right here too much in depth because many people do these right here for interior decoration as well. Then we have some small trees, some 3 high, 4 high, and then the build moves up from there. And as you begin to build out your build palette or your world, however you're building your world, you might come across things that you don't like. Like I didn't really care for this tree right here as much. Maybe that's a look that you want in your world, but I didn't really care for it too much in the two builds that I've got behind me. And so this right here is kind of our focal point tree. We've used this right here in both of our next two builds just to kind of give reference to what we're doing, okay? And then I did try to use some different colors, like some dark oak back up in these darker areas, just to try to give it some different color. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. So without further ado, let's move over to our first build. Now, what we want to begin to do with our build, our forestation, if you will, we want to begin to tell a story. Forests and the way that forests grow, there's already a preconceived understanding of how things grow. You can sit back and look at this build, and you can see that this tree right here, this is our focus tree. It is the oldest tree in this build. It's the largest tree in this build, and so for that reason, it's kind of the focus point. Now you can see a lot more small vegetation around the area that is kind of growing up. It's not really grown up, it is growing up around this big tree. And so maybe like we did some dilapidation videos earlier. If you missed them, check them out. But I'm going to show you one down here. So let's look at this stage right here of dilapidation. So maybe in this city, maybe if this right here were truly your build or whatnot, and this, your area went further back, maybe you were building on an island or on some larger continent or something like that. Maybe there was a tree back here in the back near some other plants and stuff like that. Maybe that was the way this was originally built, and they planted that tree on purpose. Well, if they abandoned that build, then that one tree that was planted and was established, that would be the largest tree, and then eventually all the other trees would then begin to grow up around that tree. So that's kind of the idea that we went with in this build. It's kind of like this one tree here. It was here already, and it was clearly established, and everything else is kind of growing up around it because it has been left to its um, own wild growth. Also underneath this build, and you'll see in our next build that the ground is covered in leaves. And so that's kind of the idea that we're trying to get across with the podzol, is that the ground is covered with leaves, and that as you walk through here, see in suburban towns and cities, you would see a big tree like this, but the underside would be grass because landscapers and stuff, they come in there and they rake up all the leaves and everything and haul them away every winter. But in natural growth, all of those leaves remain on the ground and they help to insulate the tree's roots. They fertilize the tree, and they also keep saplings and other grasses and stuff from growing up underneath the tree. Moving on to our next build, we see a much different story. We begin to see a completely different story. Now, here's our focal tree again. Now, we did do some changes to this tree. We did take out the dark oak because I have other dark oak inside of this build. And so we did take out the dark oak, but you see a completely different story. Well, we planted that tree up here up tall, and we added additional roots because that tree was actually very small for this particular build. So I wanted to elongate it a little bit. And so, but you begin to see a completely different story within this build than you did the last build. You can see that most all of the growth inside of this build is completely established. You see that, small trees are trying to grow underneath, but they're just not making it because the canopy is just so overgrown up here, and there's not a whole lot of room. Over here next to this stump, there's a hole in the canopy because when this tree right here fell, it left a gap. And so you begin to see, and of course we had to have strings and stuff to keep our vines and stuff from growing. We have some of the nice glowberries, and so I wanted to come in and add some extra stuff in there. We put just some leaves down here on the ground as maybe some growing like spruce bushes and stuff like that. So there's a ton of evergreen bushes that we use for landscaping around our houses and stuff. And of course, they grow wild out in the woods and everything. We did put some rocks and some stone out here on the ground. We added some bamboo just to kind of give a little bit of extra vertical height. There is an area right here through the middle where there's a lot of break in the canopy, and down through here I added a lot of grass to try to give this right here a look as though maybe this right here is where animals come through and forage on the grass and stuff between the two wood lines and stuff like that. Maybe this is an area where when it floods, it washes this right here out, so no trees or anything really can get established in here. And so you continue on, we see many, many more things within our build. But here, as we go out this direction, we begin to see that the trees get smaller. And so what we did over here was that we had maybe a wheat field that a farmer comes out here. This is old gravel road, and this is dirt road off here off to the side. Maybe the farmer comes out here and he farms up his wheat out here in this field. You can see how long ago I planted all this because we still got a little bit of green out here in the field, but that's fine. But the trees have begun to try to move out into the field, and the farmer hasn't been doing a really good job of pushing them back. Uh, Also, think about the trees and the vegetation that's around your area. I live in a very deciduous forest area, and so we have a lot of variety. We have cedar trees, we have oak trees, we have this right here is my attempt to use the acacia tree to reproduce what we what a tree that we have in our area called a mimosa tree. This right here is also another attempt at that. Y'all let me know if you have mimosa trees out where you live. Let me know if I succeeded in creating a mimosa tree. All right, one of these has got to be successful. Okay, so but also we took our birch trees and made them super tall, added a little bit more branches up there at the top, just to try to extend out the foliage a little bit. Down here at the bottom, of course, just like the last build, we added a lot more podzol to this one right here to show that the ground is just covered in leaves and stuff like that. Maybe we can talk to Mojane and get them to add some crunch sound to these leaves as we walk over the top of them. That would be really neat. And so we do have a tree that's fallen right here. I mentioned that earlier. We did use the jungle tree and the vines and stuff like that. We used a lot of ferns and stuff and a lot of grass. Now, plants usually kind of grow in little patches. And so I did try to come in here and add a lot of ferns up in here. And then, of course, right down through here, we had a lot of grasses and stuff. So plants and stuff, they do tend to grow in patches, like kind of like that. And so there also is critter paths going through each one of these builds. You can see the immersiveness of this build as you begin to follow this critter path, and how the critter would maybe run through here and break out here in the open, but critters don't like to be out here in the open very long, so he'd have run through there and got back up underneath the trees and then walk through here. So you know you make your world how you want to, you know. But I wanted to encourage you to use a lot more forestation in our builds. You know, we do a lot with skyscrapers. We do a lot with sci-fi builds. We do a lot with futuristic builds and buildings. Everything is kind of building centric. There's so much vegetation and so many ways that you can tell stories within Minecraft using vegetation in different ways. You know, maybe you can come up with your own storylines about how the vegetation has grown up in your world. And so I hope I've encouraged you to use more vegetation in your builds. Again, if you like the video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more vegetation, more forestation videos, please let me know down in the comments. Let me know what other kinds of forest you might want me to build. And but I want to thank you for watching. Please hit the like button. Please consider subscribing. And if I don't see you again, I hope to see you in heaven.